if he walked into churches, looked around and said, doesn't seem like people are experiencing much beauty here. Doesn't seem like the Holy Spirit is moving. Seems like people are becoming pathological and actually mentally ill. He would be like, we need to change how church is done. Like this is the thing. Like, so for example, most churches are sermon based. You know, they're about 40 minutes of a sermon, a guy talking to you. There's probably worship, sermon, worship, lead, right? Paul would come in here and be like, this isn't working. We need to make the sermon 10 minutes long. We need to have 20-minute like dialogos conversations. And why do we do worship this way? Like, I don't think we understand how much Paul is, I think Paul, because that's what he's doing in the Third Testament. The question is like, what should be happening when you go to church, right? You know, we're like this, you're talking about the mystery. You're talking about the beauty. You're talking about the openness to the other person, the openness to the mystery, the openness to the miraculous, but not the seeking of the miraculous. Because ultimately, if I would have sum up, I'd say that's the balance. You're open to the miraculous, but you don't need the miraculous. That's when it becomes pathological. Paul would walk in and look around and be like, this is not working. This is not good. And everything would be on the table. Maybe meeting Sunday morning is not the way. Maybe it needs to be Sunday evening at 5 p.m. Maybe it needs to be different days of the week. Maybe, well, honestly, I do think, and there's a guy who talks about this, I do think the modern sermon structure is very problematic. The church actually should be more Judaist. Like in Judaism, you have a continual dialogue and a continual conversation. That's what we see Jesus doing. Jesus gives like one sermon on the mount, but the majority of the time is very much locked in conversation with people, right? Conversation is where the congregation gets to actually talk with the preacher about what they're dealing with and where they're at versus being talked at, which is what? Boring. Very often is freaking boring. I think Paul would walk in and be like, why are y'all doing this? It is boring. This is not actually feeding people, right? And why aren't we
Yeah.
talking about the real situations we're in? He would come and reform it. But we are not very creative in those things. I think Paul was far more creative. But anyway.
Yeah. Now we're really dialing in on something. I can feel that. It reminds me, I went to a service a little while back. The main cathedral in Oaxaca was still continuing COVID protocol. So they were serving the bread, but they weren't serving the wine. And I started thinking about this metaphor of like bread without wine, like you're getting fed, but something, it doesn't have the living substance.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I would describe that church experience. It's bread without the wine.
Yeah.
There's like the Dionysian, the lifeblood, the essentialness of it is not quite present.